Welcome back to another episode of Marketing Girly by Sky Society. Today I'm chatting with Alex Powell. She is the Senior Manager for Go-to-Market Strategy at Target. Welcome, Alex.
Hi, thanks so much for having me, Natalie. Excited to be here.
Yay! Thank you so much for coming on. I'm very excited to dive into your diverse background. Alex has over 15 years of marketing experience across many different industries. She actually started her career in sales and transitioned that into marketing, and she's worked at Discovery, Coca-Cola, Reddit, and is now at Target. So lots of different experiences and backgrounds I'm excited to jump into. But before we get into all of that, can you tell me a little bit about who you are, Alex?
Awesome. Yeah, excited to. So, yeah, as you mentioned, I have been in this marketing and advertising industry for a while now. It's definitely been an exciting journey, a roller coaster. Really have had the opportunity to just really dive in and lean into a lot of different sectors. I think that's what has kept things interesting and has kept me sort of just always itching to expand sort of my knowledge base and just continue to add on to my toolkit, which I've been able to do, which has been really fun. But along the way, obviously, if we think back 15 years, there's also just been so much evolution within the industry. So, with that, I think it's just important to continue to sort of make sure you're knowledgeable and the next thing's happening, the new trends, et cetera. I mean, we go back to Discovery, it was more, you think, an entertainment publisher, went to sort of the CPG. I mean, Coca-Cola was obviously, as you can expect, it was such an exciting and like really a brand that I always wanted to have the opportunity to work for. So when sort of landed that opportunity, I was like, okay, part of the true like global marketing machine. And I feel like that's where, everyone sort of really learns the ins and outs of being a true marketer. So really happy that I had the opportunity to sort of lean in there and then everything from tech to now retail. So it's definitely sort of run the gamut of the different sectors I've been able to lean into. But I think the big through line is that I've been able to sort of connect the dots, whether it's through different relationships or, as I mentioned, just like blossoming into like the next new industry or just trying to unlock something new that has sort of kept things exciting for me.
All right. Well, I'm excited to dive deeper into each one of those, but I know we'll likely touch on this. But the first thing that comes to my head is I do think it's super rare on the different industries that you have worked in. And I know for a lot of women who want to make switches to industries, it seems really scary and it feels like you maybe can't get that opportunity because you're not qualified because you don't have experience in that industry. Overall, kind of obviously you've got lots of experience with this. Is there anything that you feel like is really important when it comes to positioning your transferable skills and being able to show employers that, yeah, I might not have direct experience here. However, I am still a great fit for the role?
Absolutely. And I think if I can just like touch back on how that really translated in action for me, even when I sort of got my first opportunity and foray into sort of the marketing realm. So, sort of starting back in my journey with Discovery Channel, I actually started in the sales side of things. So, which was really interesting. So, prior to coming to Discovery, I did have some sales background, advertising sales experience. So, once I started there, it was just naturally like I entered into that role. But honestly, probably 6 months in, I quickly learned like, and like sales is fine, but I just partnered closely with the marketing team and it really clicked with me like this is sort of more of the work I'm looking to do.
Mhm.
Creative, storytelling, just a lot of exciting things across the marketing team that really resonated with me. So with that, it was very important. I sort of started to build those relationships within a lot of the marketing team members pretty early. And obviously, sort of putting that carrot out there that, like, oh, if any roles do become available, like, I'm definitely interested, would love to learn more if there's opportunities to shadow, etc. But back to your point of really being able to sort of tell that story of like how the skills and the work that I'm doing right now and the different projects and how I'm working with these cross functional partners could really translate over and be a natural fit into at least starting out within like maybe a more entry level marketing role. And kept that relationship. It didn't happen overnight, but within that first year within Discovery, I was granted an opportunity to sort of move over and got the role within the marketing side. And that has sort of definitely catapulted into trajectory of me continuing sort of down this marketing career that I've had today. So I will say a little bit of obviously relationships, which we can touch on a lot more throughout the episodes, which I would say is very, very key in any industry. But I think that's something that has continued to be the unlock for me, and then all about sort of positioning. I think everyone should always have sort of their like 30-second elevator pitch ready to go of how you can really add value to this next role and taking those skills that you have and how they translate.
I love that. This is actually a very relevant conversation because right now as Sky Society, we're hiring, and I'm having a lot of people apply that don't have background in the industry, which I'm super open to for somebody that's like really eager and willing to learn. But you have to show me that, right? I can't get that if I just look at your resume. Like I just see
Absolutely.
a resume that's non-related and you look like you're unqualified. But when somebody messages me, emails me, writes a cover letter, puts a little extra thought into the questions and is like, "Hey, I know that I don't have this experience, like, but I really wanna work for Sky Society because of XYZ, and I really think that this is gonna help me." Then I can start to connect the dots and be like, "Okay, well, maybe they don't, but they're really eager." And it's actually really surprising at how few people go take that extra mile, and so I kinda love that little part of your story. It's like, okay, I started to feel like this was for me, so I was speaking up and being like, "Let me talk to people, let me shadow, let me try to show that interest," because otherwise, you just are somebody with sales background that's not qualified for that switch.
1,000%. And that, I think, to your point, can be very discouraging because, and that's how I feel like people end up getting stifled or stuck and they're just sort of moving through and doing the thing that they have always done, even though they have the ambition to do something more. But it really is about like proving yourself, or if you haven't done marketing before, you're trying to get into like a social media manager role, show that, like stand out. Like if it's in your cover letter or you want to send something extra of how you can build out your content calendar or the things that you are capable of doing, even if you don't even do it today in your day-to-day role. Keep those things top of mind and making sure that like there's some standout showing power that you can show that hiring manager, etc.
Yeah, it's those little things that go above and beyond and that you might not think get noticed, and you might not think people are seeing them, but they are. I and it's just funny because 'cause I'm, like, literally going through this on the other end, and I have girls being like, "I know you're probably getting flooded with DMs, but I thought I'd send this," but I'm like, "Well, I do see your DM," and, like, yes, I have a good amount right now, but I'm noticing it, and, like, even at our team, we keep notes of everybody that sent us an email or sent us a message because those are the little things, especially if you're trying to go somewhere where you're not the most qualified, but you are willing to learn and you're passionate. I think those are undervalued characteristics that will take
They
you far.
are 1,000%. Definitely, they don't go unnoticed, and being in a role where I am like a higher at a hiring leader level, I honestly myself, I look for those things. Like the resume may look great on paper. Also, it's how it translates in an interview. Someone that maybe didn't have XYZ skills necessarily down on their resume, but how this translated in the interview and how they were able to speak to some of their experience or speak to some of the skill sets that can apply went a very, very long way and ended up getting some of the
Mhm.
roles.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about Discovery a bit more. You were there for over 7 years and you started as an advertising sales associate. And by the time you left, you were the senior manager of integrated marketing and solutions. Can you tell me a little bit about your journey there?
Yeah. So 7 years. It's crazy to think back, but so much happened within those 7 years. It felt like a lifetime. Tons of change during that time. As you can imagine, at the start of my career towards where I ended my journey at Discovery, this was also a huge explosion of like the digital age coming about. So when I first started entering into the marketing side of things in the integrated marketing team, a lot of the work was focused in enabling our sales partners. So obviously Discovery has a huge portfolio. At the time there were over 14 networks that expanded across the globe. So you think of the Animal Planets, the TLCs, own network, etc. So I had an opportunity to sort of have touch points across all of them. And really, that was building out different opportunities for our advertising partners. How can their brand, their product be integrated in a way into some of our shows? How can their brand complement or partner with some of our talent? So there was a lot of work that working on production shoots, working with our talent, building out different narratives of why advertisers should want to be positioned with XYZ network based on their audience, our demographics, etc. So that was a lot of the work that we worked on. And you think more of those like spots and dots TV, obviously. But as things started to evolve and expanding more to our digital properties as well. So we think of our social channels as well as the websites, tlc.com, etc. There was a lot of integration of that work that our team led as well. So it was exciting because it was actually seeing things actually like start to snowball. And then it's
Mhm.
crazy now where I sit today that like everything is digital, and not saying that TV or linear is going away, but it's just very interesting to where I started my career till now to just see the evolution
Yeah,
of sort of where things are thriving.
it's changed a lot.
It's changed a
Yeah.
lot for
What
sure.
is the biggest, because this is obviously your start to marketing, right? You
Yeah.
were kind of learning as you were going. What were the biggest marketing lessons that you took from this time in your career?
Yeah, I think definitely back then, especially working with or having a lot of FaceTime with an array of different clients, it was always just interesting, especially as a marketer, really understanding more so of trying to like sell ad spots, like pitch what we can do. It was really understanding like the client and what are they trying to accomplish? What are the client goals? And then it's more so trying to then retrofit like how can our properties, how can our advertising needs fit their goals? So at that time, it was also learning about like insights and how a lot of the data, what we were seeing from our audience, which is nowhere near the type of personalized data that we have today, and how that is absolutely applied across all of my work. But I think that was the start of it, of really learning more about our clients, human insights, a lot of the data that we were seeing, which led to actually what we were going to present and get back to the clients.
Yeah.
So I would say it was a lot of learning along the way, but also just based on the different industries and what their goals were of having to sort of pivot our positioning and what's going to be
Yeah.
unique to them. So that was sort of the start of it for sure. Balancing
Yeah.
a little bit of that art and the science was really where I've learned sort of the like foundation of marketing.
It's so interesting now hearing about the data component more and more within marketing. And even myself, like I nerd out on it. I actually think it's so interesting. And I feel like analytics can seem really scary. Like, oh my god, goodness, like right, we're marketing girlies. Analytics can seem scary. But it's actually so interesting. And especially once you understand how to use it as a tool for insight, especially for somebody that's just curious about people or you like psychology.
Yeah.
I have just really grown to love it in a sense of just experimenting with things and trying things, and it's just such a cool part about marketing that I feel like I never really knew how important it was, and now obviously I need to hear guests speak about it and having my own experience. It's also kind of just, like, one of the coolest parts.
It's one of the coolest parts. And I will say, if there's a brand out there that's not leveraging the data and the analytics and listening and in tune with like moving with culture and seeing the different trends, et cetera, like they're definitely sort of just like shooting a dart in the dark, to be honest,
Yeah.
and just hoping that it lands with someone. And now it's just like there's almost no excuse not to be using all of the data at our fingertips and making
Mhm.
sure that we're really landing the mark and listening to our audiences or seeing the different behaviors of our guests or our shoppers or our consumers and really being able to be in tune with that.
Mhm. Obviously, now we're time traveling backwards, so I'm sure you're thinking about how different things were back then than where you are now. Do you
Yes.
also think about how if it changed that much in only 10-ish years, like, how much more it's going to change over the next 10 years with AI? Is that something that you're kind of actively keeping your eye on right now?
Oh, absolutely. being in marketing, it can obviously for a lot of our industries, it can be scary, right? It's like, is this going to
Mhm.
take our jobs, et cetera? Like all the things that we're seeing it can do, even in the past year. But what I'm also understanding is that we need to see it more as like a complementary tool. We should be using it to our advantage. Um, there's never going to be a day that I could see fully replacing because there's always that human insight that needs to play a part, right? There's just something that AI is not going to be able to be as in tune with. It should be able to complement if I need to plug in a bunch of data and help me synthesize and analyze this quickly. But even for my role now, when we're really trying to tell data centric stories, taking these insights, and it's not just about the what, but it's more about though that what does this mean for this particular client? And I don't necessarily feel like that's something without having that human truth behind it that's going to resonate as well. So I see it as things that we should continue to leverage when we think of personalization or just moving quicker. Obviously, in marketing, you're probably very abreast to just whether it's deck building or content creation. Let it be a helpful tool. But at the same time, I think we're always going to need that human centric aspect behind it.
Yeah. It is really interesting to hear, and I'm sure as everyone in marketing, you're keeping your eye on it, but I do like that perspective of it's going to change what your job is more than take it away, and it probably will take away some jobs, just how, like, anytime
Absolutely.
there was technology that advanced, it did, but it also creates new jobs in an area that we might not even know exists yet or that
Yeah,
we don't even understand, right? Just think about how there's, like, social media managers, like, that wasn't really a thing
it wasn't. You're right.
a
You're
decade
right.
ago, and so it's just really curious to watch and unfold, and I think especially at least for me, I wasn't really aware of a lot of those changes before, but now it's just really fun to watch and hear people's perspectives on it, but definitely something I'm sure all of us are keeping our eye on.
Yeah, keep our eyes on, and if I can give advice out there, like, don't shy away from it because it's not going
Mhm.
anywhere. It's probably gonna just continue to scale even quicker. So, if anything, learn AI, like, making sure you're learning it in and out and how it can be complementary or how you're gonna see, like, how it's gonna continue to evolve and just lean into it a little bit as well.
Absolutely. Alright, Alex, so you spent a decent amount of time here at Discovery. Can you talk to me about what led to your transition over to Coca-Cola?
Yeah, so it's interesting because I feel like it's a little twofold, a little bit of personal as well as a little bit professional. So obviously, I look at 7 and I always think about like 7 is sort of a lot of people look at it as like sort of the chapter of completion. I feel like I had
Mhm.
done a lot during my time at Discovery. I was sort of getting that itch of just like all right, digital is also, as I mentioned, like becoming more of a thing. Like, how do I tap into maybe that pocket a little bit more? And then, just on a personal note, I had had my first daughter at the time, around that time as well. So I had a 2 year old. My husband and I were sort of, as you can imagine, I worked at Discovery, I was in New York. It's just a different lifestyle. There was a lot of, I was dealing with commutes each and every day. It just became very taxing, and with a young child, I just was sort of looking for a little bit more of that work-life balance. And also I was looking like grew up sort of in the suburbs. I was sort of looking for like, all right, I want my daughter to have a backyard. I was just looking
Yeah.
for a little different change of pace at that time. So started being open to more and more opportunities. And then the opportunity at Coca-Cola presented itself. And with that was in Atlanta, Georgia. Shockingly enough, this would have been my second stint back in Atlanta after I graduated from college. I moved here right afterwards before I took the job up to Discovery. So it was sort of a full circle moment of making my way back down to Atlanta. So talked to my husband about it and we were sort of ready for this change. We were ready. So it all made sense. Stars sort of aligned, got the opportunity, and that's what sort of brought me down to Atlanta with the opportunity at Coke. And with that change, I was actually entered in a role for digital marketing. So I felt like it was also a great opportunity to continue to unlock and build upon my skill set within that sort of digital ecosystem. So that's sort of what led me to sort of that next venture.
When it comes to making a career switch for personal reasons, was that ever a struggle for you knowing that you had a lot of success at your current role? I'm sure there's also lots of high paying salaries and career opportunities in New York and kind of having to balance your personal goals with your career goals. Was that a hard decision for you? Was it easy, or kind of how did you navigate that choice?
Yeah, that's a great question. Luckily, and I feel like that should always be in the equation as you're looking for any next new
Yeah.
opportunity, right? You're balancing with like, does this job align to my mission and core values? Is it a culture fit? Is it a leadership fit? Is it a salary fit? Is it a hybrid remote or they need me in the office 5 days a week fit? So all those things definitely fall into play, right? For this particular instance, it was for advancement, it was for growth, so that naturally also made a little bit of sense, and it was for a company that was already sort of high on my list of, like, vision board. If I can work for these top 5 companies, that would be a dream, and Coca-Cola definitely was one of those, so for me, it was once I got the opportunity, it was like, "Oh, well, we absolutely have to move, like, this, we got it, and we're gonna make this work." So it happened to all sort of pan out the way it was supposed to, but
Mm.
I do think that's something that should always be in the equation because and that would be something I say though too, like you're never going to be satisfied if you're always just chasing the next salary. That would be a piece of advice I would definitely give. I feel like there has to be a lot that is tucked underneath that of things that are going to continue to make you happy, things that are continue to stretch you. And for me, I looked at this opportunity as truly a stretch opportunity. There was a lot of I was walking into that was going to be sort of net new skill sets that I was also going to be taking on. But that was a part of it that excited me the most because I felt like this is just going to be advantageous in the long run. So,
Yeah, that's well, I'd say that's I mean, awesome to hear that those the opportunity came for you at a time that you really needed it. And I also well, I always love talking about those, personal decisions of like, did you have to move jobs because your boyfriend was in another state or your
right.
husband got a job? And I just sometimes it's easy to think that, oh, like, my career journey were decisions because of my needs and my goals and only, but sometimes there are kids, partners,
Partners. Yeah,
family. There's
totally.
so much that goes into it. It's not yeah, like you said, it shouldn't just be salary, and it likely probably can't just be salary.
Absolutely.
There's other factors that go into a lot of those decisions and also motivations for taking a new role or looking for a new opportunity. So, yeah, super interesting to hear that. Now, you switched over to Coca-Cola. Now we're over in the CPG industry. Was it a difficult transition? Did it go seamlessly? What was that like for you?
I will say seamless. I don't know if I would necessarily say seamless. Exciting would maybe be more of the term I would use, but I am not going to lie. And any of like, if any of my fellow Coke team members, peers, friends that I'm still with, they know exactly what I mean. Coca Cola is a very fast paced, multi matrix, huge organization, as you can imagine. There is so much to digest. I had no idea what I was walking into, right? Um, it was a lot of sort of baptism by fire, drinking from the water hose. I can remember back to my first week starting, getting some of my projects and assignments. And it just so happened that one of the girls on my team that was sort of going to be like my shadow maid and sort of onboarding was leaving the next week exactly for maternity leave. So I had about a week of onboarding and then was sort of just like thrown into the fire, which, for me, sometimes like I do perform better at just like let me just get out there and like it's sink or swim, right? But with that, I feel like because I was almost like forced into this moment to sort of have to swim, that I learned so much so fast. Like it's just one of those environments like that's sort of the only way. You'll figure it out a little bit of that fake it till you make it. You're in the meeting, you're like, should I have the answer to this? You're learning as you go, you're learning people, but I mean, that time in my career, I wouldn't trade it for the world. I feel like I learned so much so quickly working with probably some of the smartest individuals out there. I mean, top of the game. I mean, Coca Cola is still not one of the most beloved brands out there for no reason. It's truly a brand that leans into the consumers so much. That brand love continues to be there. So to work for a brand like that, that everyone like held at such high esteem was really an honor. I was excited to work there every day. I had the opportunity to sort of stretch myself and had projects across a wide array of our portfolio. So what one day I could be working on a Sprite project or Coke or Fanta Smart Water. So many things going on, as you can imagine, so many cross-functional teams. You're learning so many other sides of the business that were just like fascinating, but you're still in your little box of like doing what you're supposed to be doing. But it was amazing to sort of have that experience, be pushed into it, but you rise to the occasion, right? So yeah, I wouldn't say seamless, but it was exciting.
What so I think maybe some of us can relate to that feeling of being so excited about an opportunity, but being thrown into it and feeling a bit overwhelmed or a bit of that imposter syndrome, especially since I'm sure previously at Discover you had been there for so long, you knew everything, you were, at the top limb leadership. Like, not that it was easy, but it was more familiar to like being thrown into something that's like entirely new and you're having to learn all over again and you're probably having these feelings of like that imposter syndrome and struggling. Any advice for dealing with those feelings or like dealing with those types of challenges that we might face in our career?
Absolutely. The one piece of advice I will say though, I don't know if imposter syndrome ever necessarily goes away,
Mhm.
right? We have all been there. We all feel it still to this day, that those feelings creep in because I feel like when you're stretching yourself in these uncomfortable areas because you're trying to stretch, I'm an ambitious person. I'm trying to learn more. You aren't always going to be the smartest person in the room, right? Or sometimes you actually very well maybe, but not feeling that confidence that you have that answer or you have that voice. So I would say with that, anyone that's out there struggling with the imposter syndrome, number one, know that you're not alone. It's a lot of us, and even the CEO. I've sat and listened to a lot of fireside chats, etc. They still feel that. No one in the room usually always has the answer. So a lot of people are in the room figuring it out together. But with that, I would say, especially early on in my time with Coke, I reached out and leaned on a lot of like peer relationships. And I feel like a lot of people were sort of like learning as you go, more than willing to show you the ropes. I had an amazing leader. Shout out to Ellen at the time that just such a great mentor, such just a fearless boss and someone that I always felt confident enough to go to transparently with questions or learn. At the time, she had been with Coke for some time. So I never felt alone in that struggle. But at the same time, I feel like as days, weeks, months went on, you learn with time. And I would say just make sure that you do have your champions and make sure you do have those people in your network of peers and et cetera that you can sort of lean on the way. And that was definitely built. Still to this day, some of my closest work relationships come out of my time at Coke for sure.
That's incredible to hear. And just hearing kind of comparing those two experiences side by side is also super interesting. Now, you were at Coke for almost 4 years, like 3.5 ish years before moving on to Reddit. So can you tell me kind of what were you feeling at the end of your time at Coke and how did it lead you over to Reddit?
Yeah. So at Coke, and especially during sort of this, I was just creeping on the tail end and trying to figure out like, okay, what do I want to do next? I will say transparently, there was a lot of change happening with the business at this time. And it was sort of also trying to track to like, what's my next role? What is the other area that I want to lean into? But there were some hurdles with that just because a lot of the transitions and restructuring and some org changes that were happening at the time. I will say I felt good about my decision at the time because I felt like I had received and sort of been able to tap into a lot of the projects and opportunities to sort of stretch myself into something new. I would say leaving Coke, probably the biggest thing that I was like most proud of is I had the opportunity there that I mentioned my manager earlier, but it was also a time where working on all these projects, but was really interested in sort of dialing into this innovation project at the time. So my partner and I, at the time, shout out to McCrae, we sort of co-led a net new opportunity and sort of operating stream for Coca-Cola at the time. So we brought this sort of net new innovation idea to our manager, sort of went up the chains at Coca-Cola, and we were able to get an allotted budget to sort of pilot this opportunity. So there's not a lot of companies out there or opportunities in your career where you sort of get this white space, you get the green light, and you have this opportunity to sort of tap into and pilot and try something. So we created the first ever like direct to consumer subscription box. So as we know with Coca-Cola, innovations are launching all the time. This was an opportunity that we felt, how do we connect our innovation launches with our true loyal consumers and a base that we know will be so excited and interested in buying into this because they'll actually be able to like try some of these innovations before they even hit shelves. So they were sort of our like insiders, if you will.
Mhm.
Think of it of almost these like micro influencers. These are your everyday people that just love their Coke, they love their Diet Coke, they love their Fanta, etc. We're having a brand new Fanta flavor. You're able to buy into the subscription. We'll send you maybe 4 different flavors across our portfolio and you'll be able to try these. So it was that's something during my time there that I was able to sort of like tie in a bow and launch, and it being such a huge success that I also just felt like I've checked the box. Like I feel very accomplished here and I want to sort of be able to like take this now and like how do I continue to like expand sort of this like innovation engine or like go and do this or rinse and repeat possibly like more and more in my career. So that's sort of where I was juggling with like, all right, had this great opportunity, but then I sort of felt like the ceiling a little bit at the time of like, how do we continue to grow this? That I was like, maybe this is an opportunity for me to like continue to stretch. And I was like itching at the time to like get my toes wet in the tech world. I was like, this is something that's going to definitely pull me out of my comfort zone. Um, and started sort of looking at different opportunities where I can sort of get a little bit of that tech experience as well.
Yeah. Interesting. It's I've also had something similar like that in my career where you get that opportunity to be like an entrepreneur in a role, I think.
Yes.
And it is so much fun, especially if you're at a big company where you also get the budget. 'Cause sometimes you might have the freedom to have the budget.
Yes, that was like an anomaly to like actually get a budget to work with and like,
Yes.
yes, go run, build, let's see, let's pilot that. So that to me, like I'll always like definitely hold dear to my heart of just like having the opportunity because it doesn't come around often. Like you said, that not every company is like, here's XYZ budget that we can like test and learn. And that's
Yeah.
exactly what it was. It was a really good opportunity to sort of test, learn, and now looking back and these many years later, like to see the explosion of how Coca-Cola continues to sort of build on their digital shelf and their digital opportunities and e-commerce has been great to see too.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, and I can definitely understand that, yeah, that wanting more of that creativity and trying to figure out where I think that's also one of the really cool things about your career is you get to learn things that you really love that you probably wouldn't have even known that was something that you wanted to find or was passionate about or interested in until it kind of happened, and then you realize, like, "Wait, this is so fun, I
It
really
was
love
more so,
this."
and I would think the sort of key theme of that and, like, building that opportunity was, like, I was learning more about myself. I really enjoyed a
Yeah,
little bit of that building phase, and, like, the
yeah,
opportunity with Reddit, and we'll even speak to my opportunity at Target Roundel, were both opportunities where I was coming in and, like, they were the start of some net new teams, and it was more in this building phase mode too that was sort of like, "All right, the blueprint has not been made yet. I get to actually get my hands a little dirty and help build of what that's going to be."
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Okay, so, you move over to Reddit. Can you tell me a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, so moved over to Reddit. So as you can imagine, very different coming out of sort of this the consumer space. I was more consumer facing at Coca-Cola. So also a pivot of the marketing that I was doing. At Reddit, I was moving into more of the B2B marketing space. So the business to business space and more marketing to businesses and other brands and vendors versus a marketing lens of marketing to our consumers who were, tangibly taking our products. So that was interesting. That was going to be a little bit of a pivot. And obviously, I think moving from like a CPG to the tech space was also a big pivot as well. But I was really, really interested in the tech space and really seeing at the time how much Reddit was continuing to grow. At the time, I wasn't like this super user on Reddit. And I realized even a lot of my fellow team members, as we were getting into the roles, we were learning just so much about this platform of how it is really just like you think of Google, but then you think of Reddit where it's these advocates of the brands. It's these everyone goes there, the anonymity of, you know, no one knows who you are like other social channels and people are coming to these different communities and talking about an endless array of things. When you think of it from a brand lens of how brands can tap into naturally these advocates that are speaking about your brands and how that can then catapult into brand love and loyalty was something I think was so unique to Reddit. It was very interesting to
Mhm.
me because it was very different than you think of your
Yeah.
Instagrams and your metas of the world, et cetera. So, number one, that was very interesting because I was definitely building my brain on that space for sure. And I felt like it was definitely an untapped platform that had so much room for growth in community and advertising involvement. So, as I mentioned at the time moving over, the team was sort of just building. There was sort of a lot of white space. I feel like they were scaling pretty quickly. There was a lot of opportunity for me to sort of lead. I was across six of our largest sectors at the time, advertising sectors. So it was a lot of work and a lot of amazing things and opportunities I was able to help build for them. If you think back to that time, there was also a lot of tech layoffs that started to ensue. So my time there did get cut a little bit short, which was unfortunate. And that was sort of foray into being laid off from an organization, which was a tough time and a tough pill to swallow, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. Okay. Let me touch on definitely wanna touch on the layoff because I know you had brought that up to me before, and like I was telling you, I think it's such a universal experience, like, everybody might go through once in their life. But before we get there, I wanna touch back on Reddit because I think you were absolutely right when you made that switch about how interesting Reddit was and also how much that we've seen it grow. I
Yeah.
feel like in the last year, Reddit has, like, popped off. Like,
Oh
I'm
yeah.
not even I'm like, "Oh, my friends are using Reddit." Like, my brothers are obsessed with Reddit.
Yeah.
Even here at Sky Society, we're trying to understand how to use Reddit. AI is pulling a lot of its results from Reddit.
Yep.
It's been, like, a crazy growth the last couple of years.
Yes, for sure. And I think even still, I feel like there's still such an like untapped market that still is probably not leveraging Reddit to its full potential. I mean, even now and today, a lot of my friends and I, we find ourselves, a lot of people are like Googling something, but then they'll put Reddit at the end
Yeah.
and it will take you into these threads, into these communities, and you're just going down a rabbit hole, right?
Yeah.
Personally, I mean, I'm a big fan of some of our, my favorite shows. I really like going into these rabbit holes and like seeing what everyone's talking about, different plots, different themes. I mean, you name it, it has everything, a recipe, how people are making things. So I definitely feel like it's continuing to have like this like growth engine
Mhm.
and a lot of more people are starting to sort of get hip to it. So with that, I think they're going to continue to have sort of this evolution and change and making sure that, they have the right sort of secret sauce of how they continue to build on that, especially when they
Mhm.
think about the engine of advertising. Like, how can advertisers continue lean into these communities and what people are looking for as a marketer? People are looking for authenticity, right? And that's something that I think for sure that Reddit is definitely helping to unlock. Like you
Yeah.
have these advocates, these people that are just coming to tell the truth unsolicited about brands that they've used, about, I mean, you name it. It's like almost like your new age consumer report. You're no longer, remember, we used to get the mailers at the consumer report checking things. Now you can just go to a place like Reddit and you're hearing word of mouth of like why you should or should not buy.
I'm curious, this is a big unrelated from your job there, but this is just a
Yeah.
personal curiosity about Reddit because I really this last few months, I've really just been trying to learn more about it because I see it becoming more popular and I know it's something that I'm not personally an avid user of yet. My biggest issue is that they're complete I know this is the appeal of it, but they're complete strangers. Like, I like when I like, for example, one of my friends she's trying to decide which Dyson to get because she wants a new Dyson. I personally like to go on TikTok. I like to see people use
Right.
the Dysons. I like to find people that look like a similar age to me. Maybe they have similar hair to me, and I want to go watch their videos about the Dyson. And my friend I mean, she goes on TikTok too, but she was like sending us Reddit threads. Like she's in the Reddit threads reading about the Dysons. But I'm like, for all you know, they're lying. For all you know, they've never used a Dyson. They just, are writing this article or they're writing this thing, or you have no idea what type of hair that they have. Like, how could you possibly like believe their review? Like, they're a complete stranger. I don't know what your personal take on it is, but that's like my one thing with Reddit. I get that's the appeal, but it's also made me hesitant as a user.
You know what? I will say I think that's a more of an appeal for most is because you really don't have anything to prove. There's not like you are not
Mhm.
like when you think of from a positioning standpoint, if you think of these like content creators that are continue to be a wave right now or affiliate programs and people that or sponsoring ads behind their products, etc. You can only take that really as a grain of salt, right? Versus this is a person that is truly for them to go and like use Dyson. I'm thinking of even like I actually use it. I was in the market for like a new SUV and like cars and was getting like these are people that are like deep into their knowledge. These are like, if you go to like the cars threads, they can tell me everything I need to know about this particular vehicle, the why not. These are people that are just like deep into it. And I think that's the thing about Reddit versus some of the social platforms. Like it's more surface. Reddit goes deep. And I feel like if you're really
Mhm.
trying to learn, even about the Dyson as an example, you can probably go in a Dyson thread and you're learning like their battery life power, how you go about exchanging it if you need to, the type of like depth of crumbs it's going to sweep up. Like they're going deep where people, I feel like that would incentivize you to want to trust it a little bit more because I mean, people are giving their true authentic experiences. And now with the incorporation of like some videos, you can, that has evolved within the Reddit platform of people actually being able to share more things like that. And it's interesting too. I think wide array of demographics. Like we think of TikTok and I feel like nowadays, especially of the younger generation, it is probably like that's their Google these days too. I'm seeing like they're going there's no longer they're like googling XYZ recipe, they're definitely going to TikTok and making like,
Mhm.
what is this TikTok trend right now? Right. So I
Yeah.
think it depends on like the audience and what you're trying to get out of like each platform.
Yeah. But even younger, like we have a marketing accelerator at Space Society, and all the girls that go out when I'm trying to find reviews on something, the first thing I go to is Reddit. And they're young. They're Gen
I
Z.
love that. And they are getting a younger and younger base. And I think
Yeah.
probably something, yeah, that they're tuning into that younger base. But to your point, like when first started Reddit, I was not a power user. I learned so
Yeah.
much. I was like, what have I been missing?
Yeah, we'll move on, but I wanna touch on it just because when we talked about AI, I honestly think Reddit actually I mean, it's a fact that it goes hand in hand with AI right now. If you look at reports on what ChatGPT pulls from and information when it's giving you answers, a disproportionate amount is to Reddit, and if you are somebody that's not actively using it or understanding it, I think it's super important. I had a conversation actually from a previous episode, and the guest works in communications, and she's talking about how they're absolutely trying to understand Reddit on the PR side. Like, it is super important for them to understand how it works, and I really, really think if we're talking about trends, that is a space that I am also very much watching because I
Yep.
do think that I mean, you make a good point about the content creator on TikTok, right? I might not wanna say anything bad about Dyson too bad because I might want them to sponsor me in the future.
Absolutely.
And on Reddit, it's two-sided coin where people are very, very harsh also
Yeah,
on
they're
Reddit,
young,
but
so
also
they have nothing to lose.
exactly, exactly. So, okay, interesting little sidebar, but
Yeah, no
I
worries.
wanted to touch on that. Okay, so, well, obviously, kind of how you had mentioned, this role ended in a layoff, and I can only imagine how difficult that must have been, especially since you had just left a role that you seem to had really liked, and you made a switch here, and you were there for just about a year before you got laid off. And obviously, even though it's a layoff, I can imagine it being difficult to not take that personally or to just really struggle with that, especially as someone where you've had just lots of success all throughout your career to getting to this point. Can you talk to me about what it felt like for you in that moment?
Yeah, I mean, visceral reaction, obviously crushed, right? It's just something. Also being the type A type of person I am, like, not being in control of something was a really also hard pill to swallow, right? Like, it just came at a moment that, I felt very out of control of this situation. So I had my time to sort of grieve the loss and, like, that opportunity, but at the same time, I really had to look at it as the crossroad too of, all right, this happened for a reason. It was out of my control. I learned too that has resonated with me even still and to take it with me moving forward is like one piece of advice it can be is like a job role, a job title, it does not define you or your value. And that is something I had to learn obviously through that process of not taking it personal and realizing like at the end of the day and any girlies in early in their career or going to move into their career, a lot of times, I mean, business is business, as like cutthroat as that sounds, but sometimes, tough decisions have to be made. And I had to realize I couldn't necessarily like define my value, define my worth, and what can I take from this opportunity and still move into a new season or a new chapter and take that experience with me as well. So, not easy and layoffs are not hard. And let's be honest, right now we are in a very, very, very tough environment. I mean, you can't open LinkedIn right now without seeing the onslaught of job losses and layoffs and opportunities. So I definitely empathize with anyone that has either been through a tough layoff, reorg, et cetera, or experiencing that right now. Um, but I would encourage you to use this time to also like figure out your why or what you want to do next. Or sometimes it's almost an opportunity that might catapult. I've seen so many people from layoffs take that as a moment that, like, that catapulted them into their entrepreneur era, and they realize, "Maybe I can do this, like, maybe this is my time to build. Maybe that is my signal." Or it's a pivot into a new industry, or it's a pivot to go get another degree. So for me, it was a time for me to reflect on what I was looking for my next opportunity and not, like, rushing right into it, but figuring out, like, what do I love about all the opportunities I've had to date? What are some things that were probably more of drains than drivers? And what do I envision in my next role? So I had that time, and sometimes I've been working for over 20 years now. It's not many times, and it shouldn't, most aren't going to look at it as a gift, but it was a gift of sort of rest. How many times do we sort of get to like turn off our brain from our everyday and just reflect, rest, and think about like what we really want? I'm sort of you're operating in sort of just like monotony and madness all the time. It was also my time for me to do a little reflection of what my next role needed to look like.
Well, I appreciate you opening up and sharing that experience because I think it's important to hear stories of women that, like you said, I was type A and, all of a sudden I was stuff was out of my control and I experienced this failure that, I'm sure seemed undeserving and just completely out of the blue. And that it absolutely is, no correlation to your self-worth, no correlation to your ability to go, get off the ground and go get your next opportunity. And so I appreciate you sharing that just because I think it's important to note that you might see somebody's LinkedIn journey and it might look amazing and great. And someone can look at your job and be like, oh my gosh, everything's so great. But doesn't mean that you didn't experience like hard setbacks and challenges throughout that journey.
For sure. For sure.
So this takes us to your current role. Oh my gosh, we've gone through so much before we got here. You're currently working within Target as a go-to-market strategy senior manager. Can you tell me a little bit about this role?
Yeah. So, yes. So After Reddit and what has been a resonating theme, I will say just connecting the dots back to, I think I spoke earlier about how key relationships and your network is, right? It's really been key to unlocking a lot of these opportunities across my career trajectory. Probably every single one of these roles we've mentioned has been usually through an opportunity of someone I was connecting back with, someone I worked with formerly, someone who reached out about an opportunity, was thinking of me, top of mind. So please, please, please continue to build your network. Cliche to say, your network is your net worth. It really is. It has resonated so true throughout my career. But it was one of the opportunities. How I found about the role at Target was through a former colleague that I had worked with at Coca Cola. So all stars aligned. It was sort of like a full circle moment as well, but it was a role. So similar to that building statement that I made earlier, this opportunity came about in, the growth engine that Roundel, the side I'm on of Target's retail media network. It's really starting across the board. Retail media networks. It's the buzzword right now. It's continuing to take off.
Can you tell us what is a retail media network?
Sure. So, a lot of companies now, whether it's a lot of retailers specifically, so the Walmarts of the world, Best Buy, CVS, Walgreens, et cetera, a lot of them are starting to form within their own organizations, sort of their own entity of like an advertising network where they have their own solution. So when you think of Target.com, for instance, and you see the different brands and vendors across the website, there's opportunities to obviously similar to what Amazon or a Google like advertise within a Target.com platform. Or if you have the Target app, how the brands are showing up and different sponsored opportunities within Target's own organization. So Roundel is its own unique entity within Target as that retailer advertiser engine.
Got it. Okay. Interesting. All
Yes.
right.
So
Continue. Thank you for
some companies, just to like also put it in perspectives, might have an outside advertising agency that is doing the advertising on their behalf, and Target has encompassed that within, and now we sort of build and execute and media plan through our own advertising retail network. So
got it.
that
Okay.
is the side also that worked very well and coupled with my background in marketing and advertising, being able to jump into the Roundel side of things and sort of lean into that type of go to market role that I'm in right now. So, with that being said, Roundel also continues to grow and expand over the past couple of years as a lot of other companies out there, as I mentioned, are starting to also increase their appeal with their own retail networks that they were looking to really build and expand sort of the go-to-market team, their product team, et cetera, within Target itself. So this opportunity came about on the go-to-market strategy team. And this was, again, B2B marketing role, similar to the work I was doing at Reddit. um, this opportunity, though, I was brought on to essentially like build out the sales enablement function for Roundel. So again, did not exist yet, no blueprint. So it was really exciting because again, a lot of white space, a lot of runway to sort of like mold it into what the vision could be for Roundel. So I came on board, then needed to hire a team and sort of build out sort of the strategy for how my team would build out content, insight narratives to enable our sellers, for our sellers to then go to brands and different vendors of why they should be advertising and investing with Target. So that's solely a lot of the work and sort of remit that my team is responsible at Roundel.
Super interesting to hear that. Um, a role that I didn't even know existed or was an opportunity, which I also love. Can you share kind of an example of that engine that you just described? So, like, can you give like maybe like a concrete example to help us visualize what your role looks like?
Sure. So this goes back to sort of connecting the dots with data, right? We talked a little bit about before how critical it is of all this data that we now have at our fingertips. So if we think back to discovery and how I was saying like now it's almost like you cannot operate without like all this data. You think about Target as a retailer, as this business, and all of the guest like shopping behavior, the guest data that we see, like when are people going into the store? When are they looking to buy things from the app? What type of fulfillment services are they using? Are they doing pickup and collect? Are they going into store? Are they having the delivery? Are they having it shipped? Think about demographics, thinking about time of day, think about are they buying this? And when they're buying this, they're also maybe possibly buying this in their cart. So all of that data is out there. How are we taking that data and now translating it into what does this mean for brands or advertisers? Like how can they tap into this data and
Mm.
knowing some of these shopper behaviors and lean into that in a very strategic and functional way. So what my team is more so responsible for is helping to craft and build out these like data centric like narratives essentially. You think of how our sellers are going to take these narratives or pitch decks and bringing them forth to the vendors with why you should be showing up at Target during the holiday season. Here's more information on like how guests are shopping, what they're buying, where we're seeing trends through how they're finding inspiration through different social channels, what type of fulfillment they're using. Brands then are able to take that data and know like how they should be thinking about investing their dollars. Like, should I be spending more on Pinterest or spending more on Instagram? Should I be focused more on making sure that we have advertising within the Target app because XYZ amount of users are using the app? So, our team is helping to really fuel that type of data and storytelling for our sellers.
So interesting and really cool, yeah, to tie it kind of back to that first conversation we had at that first role at Discovery and just seeing that data thread tie all the way through and just another reminder for all the marketing girlies listening of the importance of understanding data and analytics. And it's just always so cool, even for me to just hear about roles like this and roles that you might not know were options or opportunities and hopefully open up your perspective on what's out there for you.
For sure. And I will say, even like my team that came on board, different backgrounds. When they got into the role, they're like, oh, wow, this is a lot. They were getting their hands dirty and a lot more data than they probably even expected to. And that's just the nature of our businesses right now as marketers. Like when we talk about that balance of art and science, it's like, in order to tell a compelling story about our brand, like we need the data to back it up. Like this sounds great, but like why? Why does this matter to you? So we laugh about it now, but they're like not on my bingo card to also become a little equipped as a data analyst. But it's definitely gonna be beneficial, and that would be my encouragement of don't shy away from it because especially the nature of a lot of roles now, you even think of social media, etcetera, analytics are key. It's how you're going to stay on top of the trends and move with culture for sure.
Absolutely. All right, Alex. Well, you've already shared so much actionable advice in this episode, but as we wrap up, is there any last thing that you want to share with the marketing girlies?
I would just say if I can even go back and talk to like my 21, 25-year-old self early on in my career is stretch yourself, right? Do not be afraid of the unknown. We talked already about that imposter syndrome, but stretch yourself out of your comfort zone. You will probably shock yourself and surprise yourself of the opportunities that begin to unlock by just getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. And also, another last piece of advice I would say that sort of ties back into relationships in your network. I'll leave this for you guys. I like to think of it as sort of if you're into sports or like basketball, like your starting five. It's as a mentor now for many, I give this advice of having sort of your starting five when you think of it from a career lens. And those five people I say are your direct manager, a mentor, a sponsor, an advocate, and then like your peer set. These are the people that really should continue to be in your corner from the start of your career as you move on, that are really going to be a key piece to your career puzzle. And all of them have a very different role. But for me, when I think of my peers, they have been these are the people in the trenches with you. These are the people that are sort of growing in the business and along their career. Those are the people we always like to sort of look up and out, but make sure you're keeping those close ties with your peers, the people that are sort of like moving along. Those are the ones eventually, as everyone's moving up in their career, the people that you're going to probably reach out and tap to for your next gig. Having that mentor, the someone that can continue to sort of like unveil those blind spots, and someone that is that safe space, is not your direct manager. Identify someone that's either maybe cross functional or in a role that you want to be into. Great relationship and rapport with your manager that can continue to be that coach. The sponsor, someone that's sort of speaking your name when you're not in the room, and you're building that relationship with someone that can continue to sort of like advocate for you as you're moving along in your career. And that's sort of when you think about elevation and promotion, those are the people you really need to have in your corner as well. Um, so I would just say, especially as I look back early in my career, like really building those key defined relationships are really going to go a long way. And people that have just like are at where you really want to get to, or can sort of like cheer you along the sidelines, that are sort of, like I said, in the trenches with you.
That is incredible advice and such a great way to end this episode. Thank you so much, Alex, for coming on Marketing Girly.
Thank you so much, Natalie, for having me. It's been great chatting with you today.